What the fuck?
Well, right. I can't remember the name of the man, but I think he was a European, possibly a German. But he did a study of the crop circles during the 80s and 1990s. And what he found was each year, like, there were more interesting, unique patterns, like in geometric combinations and relationships that had not existed the previous year. Like each, there were just new combinations and new developments. So they were becoming more complex every year. Yeah, I think the crop circles are fascinating. I mean, just absolutely. I was chatting earlier today in the workshop at the library where we were, and someone asked me about crop circles, and I absolutely do not believe that these are all caused by the human circle makers. And I do think some of those circle makers are not on the level anyway. There's been a lot of suspicion that they've been paid off even by British intelligence.
Yeah, I can see that.
But all you have to do is you look at the scientific studies that look at the nodes, like the knuckles of the wheat, that are blasted out. The only logical thing we can see is by localized high heat, which heats the vapor and goes through the node. And the fact is that these stalks, they're not pressed down by boards, they flop over like this. So how does that? And they're unbelievably complex. And some of them, they're enormous, and they're 30 minutes go by in broad daylight, and boom, there they are. Now we see them being created.
Somebody had some footage a couple years ago of two orbs doing it. I saw that on YouTube. I don't know if it was a fake one.
I saw it on YouTube. I think it's fake.
Well, there was a claim that it was fake. There was a claim that it was fake for years and years, but I don't know this definitively. But I recall hearing that there was a fresh analysis done of that, and because it's very easy for some video guy, no one checks his work to say, oh, it's fake. But that was a number of years ago, and I know that people took a fresh look at it. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think that they agreed with that original conclusion.
Wow, that's so cool to see.
So I don't know though. But no, I think the circles are fascinating.
It happened fast, right? 20 minutes.
Yeah, and I don't believe those people who say that they're all. I had a conversation with an American crop circle expert, and I really like this guy. His name is Jeff Wilson. Smart young guy, and I just love what he does. He does American crop circles, which there's a lot of them in Ohio, Indiana, central part of the U.S. Quite a few, quite a few, and there's a relationship of those to. At least he argues persuasively that there's a relationship to sacred sites, Native American sites, which basically have been obliterated by real estate development and whatnot, but we know that those sites are there. And he made a very good case that they are. But I was talking with him once about the UK crop circles, and his opinion, I was kind of shocked actually, but his opinion is that like nearly all of them are fake. And I said, are you really all? I mean, a lot of them, yes, but all? That's his opinion. But in his judgment, at least a third or maybe more of all American crop circles are genuine. And he goes on the basis of anomalies with the stalks themselves and so on. But I wasn't expert enough to argue with him about the UK circles, but I just thought that seems like a high number.
Yeah, Canada has a lot in the interior rural wheat fields. You get a lot of them in Saskatchewan.
Are there any people doing detailed studies of the Canadian formations?
There's people who are into it, but there's not a big group of somebody studying them. There's just independent people who go out there, take pictures, and and they go up on the web. But I'm not aware of it. I don't think there is anybody.
I tell you, I mean, I love this country so much now. I want to come back up, and if I could sweep floors for a living up here, maybe I'll do that, and I can do some circle research on the side.
Well, you should check out John Hiller. It's pretty fun. With the dinosaurs, the one that glaciers missed.
Oh, right. I heard about that.
Oh, it's
Well, I get to got some free pictures.
Oh, no, thanks. I've got one right there. I was going to ask you about, so what do you think overall with the government conspiracy for the cover-up of the spaceships and aliens?
Holy
your general...
shit, that's just been my whole life for the last 20 years.
Yeah, I know, that's why I'm asking you that
Where
question.
did I start?
I don't know,
Well,
that's just a broad concept.
Well,
idea.
let's start by levels. So level one. Level one is what we know we can prove without any argument. Level one is, this is like the boring part, but it's important. There is proof. Not proof that UFOs are ET, not proof that they're anything, but proof that the phenomenon is absolutely real, and that the U.S. government in particular has cared about this at a very, very profound level since the beginning, since the 1940s. And by proof, I'm saying declassified U.S. government documents. And to me, that constitutes proof. You take the top 10, the top 20, the top 50, the top 100 of those documents, and they don't hint, they don't suggest, they prove that the U.S. military and the CIA and all the other agencies were concerned, very concerned about UFOs. Why? Obvious. Because unknown objects that didn't look normal, that were disc-shaped, that didn't act normally, because they could loiter indefinitely and then take off or zigzag and do all these impossible things. We're invading sensitive airspace, nuclear installations that we're not supposed to have, and all of this. Los Alamos National Labs in the 1940s, Oak Ridge in the 1940s. Those are two key nuclear sites. They were constantly, repeatedly violated in their airspace by these unknown objects. The Hanford Nuclear Facility in the state of Washington, not far from here, in the early 50s, the scene of repeated UFOs. And this is stated in a document. There's one document that said objects round in form have been seen repeatedly. Jet fighters, no result. Anti-aircraft battalions alerted. I mean, think about what people would have said had they known this at the time in 1950, if these documents had been available. You know?
And, well, it's obvious that like Jim Marrs says, that the aliens, when we discovered nuclear, you know, when we started making nuclear bombs, like Jim Marrs quotes, he's got my favorite quote there on the children have found the matches, right? So they're going to these nuclear missile sites and everything. So I have a question. Do you think, because I was saying that to somebody once, I was saying, you know, they're going to all these nuclear and they shut them down sometimes and also, and my friend said, oh, well then we don't have to worry about a nuclear war going on because the aliens are going to take care of it for us. They won't let us.
He says that facetiously, but the fact is this.
So what do you think of that concept? You think they're going to keep us from blowing each other up, maybe?
Well, I don't know. Nobody knows, but think about this. We've had nukes, we've had a nuclear standoff for over 50, 60 years, and we haven't had a nuclear war. So maybe, hey, maybe that is the case, actually. You never know. But the fact is, you know, if we're going to talk about cover-up, I just gave you only level 1. That's the most superficial thing. What we know is that there's interest, there's concern. But relating to the nukes, that's a step further. These things, wherever they are, are concerned about the nukes. In my opinion, they actually are. It's not that they simply hang out over nuclear installations. They have disabled nuclear weaponry multiple times.
Yeah, I know.
Right? And in my newest book, which this will be my plug for my newest book, UFOs for the 21st Century Mind, but in that book, I included an interview that I did with a man who was in the U.S. Navy in the Pacific Ocean in the early 1960s. And he was part of what was called Operation Dominic. Operation Dominic was this really bright idea, not, by the U.S. government to explode 36 nukes in the higher upper stratosphere off the coast of Hawaii from April to October 1962. 36 hydrogen bombs. 36. From 1945 to the end of the century, this world experienced over 2,000 nuclear detonations. Over 2,000. It's unbelievable. With all the environmental damage we're seeing now, we're talking about atmospheric damage. No one talks about the nukes and what that did to our environment. But anyway, the point is, during Operation Dominic, which was a very specific series of high-altitude hydrogen bomb explosions in the Pacific, this guy was part of some of that. And one thing he said to me is that every single time they were about to launch a nuke, there were bogeys in the sky, that is UFOs, that would always disappear just before detonation. I spoke to another U.S. Navy guy who did a service in the Pacific in the 60s.
So it affects them.
He wasn't, yes, he wasn't part of Dominic, but he also said they had bogeys all the time. Yes, what happens is these nukes give off powerful electromagnetic pulses. They're disruptive to the upper atmosphere, and they must be disruptive to anything that's out there. So we got their attention. And so yeah, I mean, they're definitely concerned with our nukes. But in terms of the cover-up, I mean, think of it this way. Just pretend that crash retrievals did occur, that somehow the U.S. military recovered technology that was exotic, that did not originate from the civilization. Just pretend it happened, because I think it did.
And reverse engineered it, yeah. So
if that's the case, if you're the person in charge of national security, you're not going to tell the world. You can't tell the world.
They want to hoard the patents.
Well, they want to hoard absolutely. But also think of the public relations nightmare if you were to tell the world you got this stuff.
Yeah, I suppose.
You're going to be the president of the U.S. and you're going to have to answer a lot of questions. You don't know how to answer them. Do we have anything to worry about these aliens? Are they friend or foe? You probably wouldn't know. And it's a no-win situation. And then then there's sharing the technology. Then there's the revolutionary nature of this technology. I mean, think about it. You know, a little 10-year-old kid looking at a flying saucer zipping through the sky knows that it's not running on gasoline. So implicit in the whole UFO phenomenon is what? A post-petroleum future. And what does that mean? We're in a whole total petroleum world here. Everything is oil. The entire global financial system is interconnected with oil. It's all oil power. And back then especially, oil was generating economic growth of 5% globally a year. I mean, it's great, man. You know, why rock the boat? They're making bucket loads of money. And they don't know how to monetize free energy. If whatever the energy source of these objects, if it's electrogravitic type system based on some other kind of exotic form of energy that we haven't mastered, but we would master if we had this secret out in the open. But what if you can't easily monetize it?
Right.
And what if they don't know how? So there's all of these unknown variables. And so then you have free energy for the people. That's great for us, probably. Not good for the control system.
Right.
I mean, literally, think about it. You could build your own little flying saucer and zip off to Burma, zip off to Germany. It might be a little hard to control national borders, among other things. Borders would become very porous, which I think would be kind of interesting. Maybe not such a bad thing.
What do you think of? You probably know about this incident where the CIA went in and they were researching where Noah's Ark. Do you know about that?
Oh no, I wish my friend Nick Redfern knows a lot about this. He wrote quite a bit about it.
Yeah, and I wondered if you had any ideas, or if you know about that, any thoughts on that? Because
really.
It was I guess the original text. It was actually they didn't store the animals. Sorry to interrupt, but they weren't storing the two of each animal. If you read the actual interpretation of the language. Linguistically, what it was saying was the seeds of the animal.
Yeah, I mean,
so
if there's any truth to this,
it's probably a ship.
Material.
That's right. So why is the CIA studying that? Why are they bringing people up there to find that out? You know, and I wonder what you thought of that.
Well, I guess I would just say that the CIA and probably other intelligence agencies too take a lot of those stories a lot more seriously than we're led to believe. And the idea of the seed, I think, is key, because if there's any truth to the Noah's Ark story, which is itself based on earlier Sumerian stories anyway, then it would have to be, you're talking about advanced people who have the ability to manipulate genetics and store genetic material. Which, I mean, that's, sounds crazy to someone who hasn't really studied any of this alternative view, but they might be surprised to find that there's actually quite a few researchers who have been going that way. It's really not my specialty, and it's hard for me to form an opinion, but
yeah, that's true. I'm sorry.
I'm very... I really respect Nick's research on that, and seems like they were interested.
Yeah.
Sure, I mean, they're interested in all kinds of things. CIA's been interested in all kinds of off-the-chart things. I mean, they focused on remote viewing, psychic spy,
right.
which was a huge thing. And then, of course, let's not forget their whole attempt to harness the human mind and soul through MK Ultra and mind control through the 1940s and 50s and 60s and beyond. They still
right, MK12.
A lot of that work was done here in Canada too. Over in Montreal and McGill, a lot of horrific.
MK Ultra, I meant to say.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and there's
what do you think they're
on the cutting edge? They're out there.
I don't know. Do you think that they're really running the American government?
I don't know if the CIA per se is. I think the CIA has always worked for wealthy money, Rockefeller money. In fact, the foundation of the CIA, you get people like Allen Dulles. At the origins of it, he was a Rockefeller lawyer for years. They work for the rich, always have. The U.S. intelligence community works for the uber wealthy, always have.
Federal Reserve people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rockefellers.
So, so to say they run the country, they're like the covert managers, and they work for their bosses, who are the people with the bucks.
And what do you think with the alien? What do you think the alien agenda is? Like, what do you think they're doing? Do you think they're breeding us, or do you think they're genetically altering the violence out of the human race through genetic change? Like the way that we took wolves and made them into dog pets, right? Do you think maybe the aliens are doing that genetically just to keep the war and the violence down, and because we don't need our animal side anymore because we know how to farm?
Well, if they're doing it, they're not succeeding. Our violence is as higher than it's ever been.
Yeah.
I mean, we're great at bombing people and killing them and causing misery and starvation, so I don't know. If they're really here to do that, then they're failing miserably. But I wouldn't say alien agenda, I would say alien agendas. I would say plural. I don't really believe, I'm just speculating here, but just based on the research that I've done, I have become aware of multiple types of people, beings, whatever they are, that seem to be interacting here on planet Earth. Some of these are human beings that look just like us. They don't act like us. They're very different. You get stories about the Greys. They're definitely out there. You get many stories now about reptoid type creatures. Are they all on the same team? I don't know. Then you get stories of people who are very positive that they have these wonderful telepathic downloads from other types of beings who are very positive and beneficent. Then you talk to people who've had abduction experiences who are so fucked up and traumatized they can't process it. Is that the same thing? I think it's a very different thing. So I think that there are multiple agendas, to be honest with you, and it makes sense to me. You know why? I look at Earth and I look at humanity right now.
The diversity just everywhere.
I think humanity is the most fascinating thing right now. We're transforming ourselves as a civilization right now. It's easy for us to look down on ourselves and think, oh, people, they're just, we're nothing special. But no, we're really special. It's not just that we can produce Mozart or Leonardo da Vinci. We have a society that really has got a lot of interesting things going on. There's a lot of stupid things going on in reality TV and people just having enforced idiocy, all right? But there's a lot of amazing things happening. And on top of that, our technological innovation is going. In 150 years, think about where we were. 150 years ago, the society of mud and horses and wooden carts, and that was us. Now, anywhere you go in the world. And from that time to now, we've gone through trains, automobiles, airplanes, missiles, atomic nuclear weapons, computers, really great computers, iPads, advanced nanotech, and soon...
Hadron collider. Or,
yeah, exactly. Genetic manipulation. I mean, we've really cracked the human genome. We're going to have very strong AI in a few years. It's going to happen. Advanced 3D printing. I mean, good God, all in that amount of time.
Yeah.
So if there's anyone that has the ability to watch us and maybe, to kind of get in here, they're going to be looking at us now. And they may be thinking, not that we're going to be able to take them in a street fight in a few years, but we might be a real annoyance. We're going to have quantum computing, if we don't already have it covertly. In other words, our capabilities are going exponentially times exponentially greater. This is not like what it was in the time of, Abraham Lincoln. This is a totally different situation. So they've got to be looking at us thinking, some of them might logically think, humanity might be annoying, let's get control of it, if they haven't already. So we'll control the World Bank, we'll control the U.S. presidency, we'll control, the UN, whatever institutions. I'm not saying this is the case, but if I were one of them looking at humanity, hell, I would.
Agenda 21.
Yeah.
Things like this.
Right. Well, maybe yes. Controlling population, keeping them kind of penned in, keeping them controlled.
Yeah.
That might be part of it. But yes, so I mean, I think there's probably different agendas. Just like, if humans were to descend on some remote aboriginal society that had never encountered, it had never encountered the rest of the world, probably there'd be different motivations too. You'd have people who would be very scientific and would not want to touch and just observe, and then there'd be those who'd say, let's save their souls and evangelize them. And then there might be others who say, let's check their health care and just make sure that they're healthy and we'll try not to get in the way too much. I mean, there might be all of these different motivations.
Right.
And again, I think it's possible that we're dealing with... and the reason I think this is because when you look at the reports, you look at all the different things that people report, and these are all in their own way credible people, and they're saying different things. So why don't we just take them at their word and go on the assumption that they're dealing with different entities?
And
why don't we just do that?
What do you think of Jacques Vallée's ideas about other dimensions of reality and a connection with alien energy through, realms of, that...
Well, I like Vallée in many ways. I think Vallée is one of the most interesting intellectuals who's ever studied UFO phenomenon. So, and we need a lot of people who are smart like Jacques Vallée to think about this. One of his biggest contributions, which some have said is, maybe not very helpful, others have said is very helpful, is that he really helped to move the emphasis away from the whole extraterrestrial hypothesis. So, this is back in the 60s and 70s, and he started to think, this phenomenon is a lot stranger than metal ships coming from another solar system. It seems like we're dealing with something a little stranger. And he's often said, like, if UFOs ever just turned out to be only other people from another planet, he said, I'd be so disappointed. It'd be, like, so uninteresting. But he really believes it's much more interesting than that. And when you look at some of the very incredible strangeness, that people have encountered over the years, I'm inclined to agree that there's something very bizarre. We mentioned dimensions. And this comes up a lot when we talk about the phenomenon because there seems to be something that seems interdimensional, even if, I mean, honestly, you hear people talk about dimensions and wonder, do we really even know what we're talking about? What is another dimension? But I think intuitively, instinctively, we do recognize that there are probably other dimensions of reality.
Just dreaming at night gives us some idea that there's other realms
maybe
of
that's
existence that consciousness can live in.
But I mean, I think of it this way. I was chatting with you earlier about my dog. So I have a lovely dog, and I've had different dogs throughout my life, and I think dogs are wonderful. And many years ago, I had an insight when I was observing my dog. I don't know if I told you this. This is like a cool moment for me in my life. I was in my 20s. So I was getting a can of dog food out, and my dog's watching me, and like he knew that I was about to feed him, because he's smart. He's a dog. He knows a lot of things. He knows a lot of things that I don't know. Like he can smell things and hear things, and he can sense emotions. You know, they're great creatures. So I put the dog food out, and he's eating it, and I'm observing him, thinking, well, he's very intelligent. Like he knows me. He knows that there's dog food there, but he has his limitations. Like he doesn't know how the food got into the dog food can. He doesn't know that. He doesn't know that there are human factories that make dog food. He doesn't know what the moon is when he howls at the moon. It's not his fault. His brain is just set up in a certain way. So I thought, gee, Richard, you're so smart. Your dog's here, so you're here. What's there? What's there? What's there? We forget. We think that, oh yes, we're at the top. No, really we're not. Our brains also work in a certain way. And if there are entities that can operate at a higher level, then clearly they're going to be looking at us thinking, well, yes, those humans can't. They can't possibly understand. Just the way we would look at other animals. And I think it's really silly if we don't acknowledge that that's probably likely.
Yeah, I have the same.
So let's talk about other dimensions. There probably are. In fact, if you look at something like even string theory, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, with Dr. Michio Kaku.
Kaku and Brian Greene and some of these other people. And the string theorists will say that the math only works if you have a universe of, I think, 11 dimensions.
11 dimensions, yeah.
Although, from what I think I heard recently, that number's been
even more now. Yeah.
But either way, so they're talking about multiple dimensions too, which 50 years ago, scientists didn't have any conception about how to think about it. Now we talk about that, we talk about multiverses, we talk about all of these things. So
yeah,
so
I mean,
so that's part of our new mental universe, right? And so I think dimensions are probably really an important part of this. I think that we're bumping into a phenomenon, ultimately, that is at the edge, it's at the very edges of our understanding, of our comfort zone.
Right.
And so we struggle. We struggle to figure this out because this is like complicated shit, and we're only so smart, and then there's something beyond over the fence that we don't always get easily.
What do you think of the anyway?
Well, that's an interesting idea. The whole idea of portals, I think, is very interesting. I'm not trying to switch things around here, but there seem to be such places. There seem to be certain places that people have encountered where there's very bizarre things happening. There's this. I met with a woman years ago, who got very animated. She told me of a story that happened to her back in the 1970s, and she was in Hawaii on a date with a guy.
Okay.
So
is it Maui? Do you know which island?
I don't know exactly.
There's some wild stuff going on in Maui, but don't get me started on Maui. Okay. Anyway, yeah.
Well, I'm going to get you started on it later because I want to know
later,
how to talk about it.
Okay, I'll tell you later.
All right. So but anyway, she was
on a date with this guy.
She was in Hawaii, and she was on like this romantic evening, and they were lying on a hillside, looking at the stars, basically. So right. But then she said, we were both looking straight up, and we both saw this window in the sky, this window of light, and she said it was like square, and it opened up, and they both looked at it for several seconds, maybe not more than 5 seconds, but maybe about 5 seconds. Opens up, and then closed. And just watching her describe it to me, this lady got very animated. I mean, she got worked up. I've heard this story before my first book was published. I was probably in the home stretch of writing it, and she probably learned that I was doing it. And she said, oh my God, I have to tell you this story. And she ran all over the room describing everything to me. And in fact, it was one of those things that she didn't even tell her husband, who wasn't the guy that she was out on the date with, so maybe that was why, who knows. But she hadn't told anybody. And she told me, yeah.
It's because she found a safe place to be able to tell you. What's the name of your first book?
UFOs and the National Security State, and it's the first volume. I've done 2 volumes. So they're both 500 and then 600 pages each. They're big fat books. They're essentially, they do a couple of things. They talk about the important sightings that matter, from the 1940s, and volume 2 takes it up to 1991, the end of the Cold War. So if you are interested in a particular important event, I hoped that I covered in one of those books. But then there's politics. I try to weave that in and ask myself, what is the interest of the U.S. government, primarily the U.S. government, in this phenomenon? Who's running the show? Is there a group in charge and whatnot? And then the third leg of the book would be looking at civilians and researchers and like what ordinary people have thought about this phenomenon. People who've tried to edge secrecy, people who are trying to research this phenomenon and just figure it out, and how has that whole thing evolved. That's a fascinating story, and it really hadn't been told. So I tried to weave all of that together into a very comprehensive history.
Right, like the evolution of us trying to figure it all out.
It's the history, exactly. It's a history of our own consciousness trying to grapple with this greatest of mysteries in the history of the world.
From like 1947, and then the...
Exactly. We've come a long way. It's been a long, long journey of learning. So that's the 2 volumes of UFOs and National Security State, and there will be a third. I expect it done. I'm going to be deep back into it this summer of 2014, any time now.
In what way?
Like finishing it, getting volume 3 done. It's going to be another 600-page book.
Wow, great.
These things, they take a lot out of me. I would have had volume 3 done years ago, but I wrote 2 books in the interim.
Which other books?
I wrote a book about the future. I co-authored that one called AD, After Disclosure, and it's basically a speculative book, but with my feet on the ground, looking at a world of the end of UFO secrecy. So my co-author asked, how might UFO secrecy end? Like, would it ever really end? Some people think, no, it's impossible, it'll never end. But I think it's a paradox. It's impossible, but it's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And then what happens after the end of that secrecy? How will it rock our world? And that's really what that book explores.
Yeah.
That was a great adventure writing that book. I had a good co-author. And basically, by the end of it, we realized this is an absolutely, utterly, completely revolutionary phenomenon, and that is exactly why the secrecy is so intense. Because this will change everything. Everything. So then I was about to get back into volume 3 after I finished AD, and then I ended up doing a different book called UFOs for the 21st Century Mind. And that's a total fresh summation of the whole subject, of everything, of all of its amazing, baffling, insane, crazy profundity. Because it's everything. It makes you crazy, but it makes you wise. And it does. So it talks about the history from ancient aliens to today. I cover the whole history of it. But there's a lot of philosophy in this book. There's a lot of politics, deep politics, not bullshit kindergarten politics, but sophisticated politics that deals with how does the cover-up actually work, at least to the best of my ability to understand this. But not just the politics. I look at social implications, the whole aspect of contact. What's happening when people are having these experiences? How is it affecting them? What the hell are we dealing with? Who are these other entities? What could they be? I really try to explore this in a sophisticated way. And then there's, beyond that, it's the science, the crazy science that just doesn't seem to make sense, but actually it does. Whether we're talking about something as simple as propulsion technology, to space-time manipulation, to string theory, to dimensions, to consciousness, to entanglement, all of those things matter in the UFO phenomenon. A lot of the book deals with social implications of this. In other words, what is it like to study UFOs today as opposed to 1950? How's it different? What are the issues we deal with in an age of YouTube videos being posted and Facebook copy and paste rumor and the whole kind of movement of new age ideology and consciousness also into the UFO study? What does that mean? I really try to explore all of that and just understand it and kind of get it. And then I do have a fresh chapter on looking at the future, sort of a revised AD that ends the book, looking into the future, because I constantly have new thoughts on disclosure and what it means for us. And so those are fresh thoughts that I put at the end of the book. So for me, everything that I feel is important about the UFO subject makes up UFOs for the 21st Century Mind. And I wrote it as the best new introduction to the whole subject. That was my intention, for newbies and experienced people alike. So it was ambitious, 500 pages, I'm done with it. Now, I'm glad I did it, but I want to go back to volume 3 and get that thing done and get it off my plate. I feel like, I feel like the luckiest guy that I know, honestly.
Yeah, you've had quite the journey.
It's been an amazing journey. Here's why. First of all, I get to do what I love. It's not always what I love. I get to do what I'm maniacally obsessed by. Right. That's really a little more accurate. This thing grabs you. It grabs me, and it doesn't let me go. I've thrown my life onto the altar of this subject. I mean, that's the truth. And I'm a lifer. That's fine. But I get to do it. I wake up in the morning and I think, I've got a great life and I have a lot of cool things that I'm investigating, fascinating mysteries, amazing people that I meet along the way, like you and Brian, and a lot of the other people here in Vancouver that I just loved meeting. So I get to do that. I get to learn. but the journey. So here's the journey, in a nutshell. 20 years ago, I started. 20 years ago, I was trying to wrap up a doctoral dissertation in Cold War studies. Harry Truman and the Soviet Union, the Russians, the birth of the CIA. And that's all interesting stuff. No flying saucers in that whole bit, you know? Then, somehow, who knows why, because I still don't know why to this day, I stumbled into the subject of UFOs. I saw a book in a bookstore, a great book, which is on Brian's shelf over there. Timothy Good's Above Top Secret. If you find it, you can bring it over and I'll show it.
It's down here, right?
I'm looking right at it. It's right on the bottom shelf, second to the left.
Ooh, do you want
Am I getting it wrong there?
Do you want us to put a bit of grapefruit juice in that? Or do you want?
Do you think I should?
Well, I don't know if you need energy or anything.
I'm cool right now.
Okay, I thought.
Oh, here it is.
I might put some grapefruit juice.
See, I thought I was looking right at it. So we will show the good people.
So
Above
this is the
Top
book
Secret.
that changed your life.
This actually did. So I was in a
Okay.
bookstore in the early 90s, like a million years ago.
Okay.
And this book was on a display stand. And I basically said, hello, what's this? And it says, Above Top Secret, the worldwide UFO cover-up. And that was what got my attention. And I was like, for realsies? And I flipped through the book just like this. And I saw names that I'd recognized in my study, departments that I had studied in my academic work. And the difference, though, was that Timothy Good was putting them in a context that was totally different, of course, and putting them together in a UFO context. And, you know, even a casual glance at this could tell that looked like he was doing a pretty good job. And I had this moment of what I call cultural schizophrenia. The opposition of official truth, what we're supposed to believe, and unofficial truth, what actually a lot of intelligent people seemingly do believe. They're not the same sometimes. And I just had one tiny little question in my mind at the time. It wasn't even, are UFOs real? That was not my question in this book, when I looked at this book.
What was your question?
My question was this a thing that my government cared about? Whether they were right or wrong? Did the US government, circa 1950, give a shit about UFOs? Because if they did, even if they were wrong about it, why had I never read about it in any academic history book? How is that not interesting? Because that's really interesting.
Good point.
And, right, simple question. And so I thought, I'm going to take a little bit of time out of my life, and I'm going to dive into this. This is what I do periodically. I'll get like obsessively interested in a thing, in a topic, and I'll just throw myself into it. So I thought, I'm going to do it with UFOs. What the hell? Why not? But the problem with the UFO subject is it's like...
The rabbit hole.
It is. It's a rabbit hole. It's like Odysseus' sirens. It just calls you, and then you're like...
Curiosity kills kitties.
You're in, right. So here's what happened.
Yeah.
I got the answer to my first question pretty early on. Hell yes, they were interested. The declassified documents, some of which are here, and some of which are in other books, that makes it very clear. U.S. government, oh yeah, they were interested. So then that leads to other questions. Why were they interested? Well, that's a pretty interesting answer. As I said earlier to you, airspace violations, unknown objects, that seemed to be doing amazing things, performance that wasn't supposed to be possible. So that leads to other questions. Were they actually seeing other things? You know, was this genuine? And the deeper you go, the more it looked like, actually, yeah, it did look like it. Did they ever stop being interested? Turns out, no, hell no, they never stopped being interested, despite their lies. So it didn't take long before I realized, this is pretty darn interesting, and I want to get to the bottom of this. That was 20 years ago.
Get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
What do you think of how Werner von Braun's assistant said that he said, watch out for them pulling the aliens are invading card?
That's right.
And
Carol Brosnan, who was an assistant for Werner von Braun during the last few years of his life in the 1970s.
And how he kept saying
talked about
that. Like, what do you think of that? You think that might be something up their sleeve they're going to do?
What he said to her, right, according to what she has repeated, I'm sure she's truthful about it, that he said to her, Carol, they're going to go through 3 phases. They're going to first, I'm trying to remember exactly.
Yeah.
They're going to play the Soviet Union, which they're doing now. Then they're going to play terrorists.
Right, yeah, and then terrorists.
And then they're going to play the ET card,
Right,
the evil
yeah.
ET card. And that's all part of their plan to sort of create, basically,
Control,
fascist state, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, maybe that's the case. Now, a couple of things about Von Braun. A, he was very plugged in, and he did know a lot of things.
And I mean, he said that
yeah.
they said they had help from people from not this planet or whatever that quote was. Sorry to interrupt.
Hermann Oberth,
Yeah, he said.
Von Braun's mentor.
He
That's
said
right,
we've had
yeah,
help
that
from people
guy.
from other planets.
And how he said
Right.
that they got help, you know, like the rocket ships and all that, with people from other planets. I don't know.
Yeah, Oberth was, it's
that
interesting you mentioned him, he's a very interesting guy, and none of his biographers talk about his fascination with the flying saucer phenomenon and these statements like his that he used to make.
Wow.
Oberth was a very interesting guy.
Wow.
But anyway, and
So sorry, back to
back to von Braun. I look at it in a couple of ways. I think it's very likely he did say it. The question is...
Well, you said he was plugged in. I'm sorry.
I think he was very plugged in, but how plugged in was he?
Right.
Was he completely plugged in? What you find is that this is a subject in which people have partial access. It's very rare you're going to find someone who's got total access to everything. And honestly, I sincerely doubt that even von Braun had total access, total knowledge. I would be skeptical. Maybe he did. He was running the kind of NASA rocket program. He was kind of putting people out there in space. So he probably knew a lot. But even
He was paperclip, so they're not gonna open everything.
How
to
much
him,
would
right?
he know? Probably knew a lot. Probably knew a lot, but did he know everything? Was he giving her his opinion? Was he giving her something that he was briefed on? No one knows this.
Yeah, I guess no one knows.
Carol doesn't know this.
Yeah.
So it's very possible he was just giving her his opinion.
Just throwing that out there. I'm
the
just
whole
curious
idea-
about your thoughts on it.
Here's
you know.
why I'm a little bit skeptical of the whole ET false flag scenario.
Okay.
I'm skeptical about it because when I look at the logistics, I just think this is an impossibility, and it's also unnecessary. If you want to create a global totalitarian state, why the hell do you need an ET false flag? There's no point. They're already creating it without it.
That's true.
I mean, they are literally doing it by degrees right now, both with technology and with legal, transnational legal structures that are being put into place. There is no need to... And plus, think about this. They might scare the shit out of most ordinary people with a false flag alien invasion, but do you really honestly think they're going to scare off an entire world of scientists who are not only skeptical about UFOs, but they're deep in their bones, they are irremediably hostile to the very idea. They're not just all going to roll over. I mean, unless you want to, I don't know, kill them all or put them all in a camp, maybe they'll do that. But this is a pretty extreme thing to do. You're going to have a big cell. You're going to need a hell of a light show, man. And you're going to have to keep it going for a while.
Yeah.
And I just, I think of that as a nightmare of logistics.
Yeah.
So I'm skeptical. However, I'll say this. If we are ever at the point where any government says that there's an ET invasion, then I would say absolutely that's a false flag.
Okay.
So I don't believe that it will happen.
You think it would probably be an event
But-
if there is going to be, post alien showing themselves. It would probably be the alien event itself, not the government telling us that there's been an invasion.
Well,
It's
I
just
think
gonna happen,
if
maybe.
there's an alien invasion scenario,
Like-
I think my hunch is that it would be a government false flag. I don't believe that we're actually going to deal with a true alien spaceship scenario. I think if they're invading, they're doing it just the way they do it now, which is probably through infiltration.
Right, and just integrating slowly.
Like I'm just very doubtful that we're going to see a situation where like the ships arrive and they, I don't believe it. If that happens, then I would be inclined to think that's a false flag. But I don't really. Does that make any sense?
No, it does,
I don't
actually.
think there's
I
going to be a
agree with
false
you.
flag. But
I
if there's an
agree.
alien invasion, then I would change my opinion and say that's a goddamn false flag. That's what I would say.
I'm trying to think of what else to ask you about. I've just done. Wow! I just like.
Well,
that was
people should know we're
a
doing
lot.
this at 1:45 in the morning.
I know, that's the other
we're going
thing.
like late into
Canadian time. Like you're on you're on New York time, so you're already even
Well,
more.
I've driven across the country though, so
That's
it's not
true.
like I'm on jet lag.
Yeah.
I've gotten eased into it, so I'm good.
It's pretty amazing considering it's really late, and you just taught an entire workshop since 9 o'clock
I gave a
this
2-hour
morning.
lecture
Wow.
and then did a 2-hour workship.
Yeah.
Before driving across the country
Well,
on
and
a
then,
book tour.
Don't forget, in between those, when I'm at a conference, I'm constantly like, it's insane. So there's always people who want to talk to me. So I just been talking
like
about
it.
stuff all day.
You like it.
Well, I love people. I really do like people. I love human beings, and I feel a real connection with people. I truly do.
You're
So-
a Cancer. You're emotional.
I am emotional. Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. So I enjoy that. I enjoy what I do.
Well, okay, I'm happy with the interview. Thanks. And I thought we just let it roll, and if any little bits and pieces of anything else and we're just talking normally,
Great,
unless you can
fun.
think of anything else.
Well, I would just, if anyone's listening, if you play this anywhere, sometimes people say, why do you think UFOs are relevant? There's 9/11, there's chemtrails, there's global financial fraud. Why would UFOs be so relevant? And, on the face of it, that sounds like a fair question, but when you actually get into the depths of it, the UFO cover-up is, I would argue, at the core of all of the criminal illegality that we're actually dealing with. It's not the cause of all of it. I mean, there's always been criminals running the world, but the UFO cover-up is a very key part of it. The secrecy on UFOs was one of the key instigators of the black budget culture that has dominated my country. You know, the necessity to hide the technology, to not tell Congress about it, all of that, that's part of the foundation of what has become this empire that's basically turned the U.S. into something totally different.
Yeah, and they can justify their corruption.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, where's all this money going? I mean, there's billions and maybe trillions of dollars of money that goes unaccounted for. Well, some of that is related to this phenomenon. I'm of that opinion. So the UFO phenomenon matters in terms of our money, and it also matters in terms of the implications of the technology, which, if intelligently applied, could cause a renaissance of human civilization. It really could. And then it's also significant in terms of just pure existentialism. That is, who the fuck are these other entities, pardon my language, that we're dealing with, that are interacting with us? This is quite significant. I've talked to many people who've had these encounters. They are traumatized frequently. These people, they tell me what happened to them 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and their heart races, and they have heart palpitations, and they hyperventilate. This is serious stuff. This is not a game. There's something that's happening to people that they don't know how to process. It's very difficult, and it's traumatic. Sometimes it can be transformative in a positive way. That's also significant. But all of it is important. This is something that affects many people in a deeply personal way. This is just, it's not like fun and games. It's a very important phenomenon that's involving some kind of civilization, some kind of intelligence that's operating in a very sophisticated way. And by the way, there are human black budget operators who are aware of this, and they too are part of this equation. They're monitoring things. This is what it looks like to me. There's a very complex, labyrinthian sort of interrelationship of, you know, who. I would love to have a true scorecard to see who all the players are, but I think there's multiple groups that are not us, others, as I sometimes call them. I think there are multiple human groups that are involved in figuring this out. Maybe they don't play nice with each other either. They may be competing. And and all of this is beyond, it's on the other side of our fence. We don't ordinarily have access to it, but it's there. It's going on. So, last thing I'll just leave you with is a few years ago I did a night watch with a group of people who had very good quality night vision binoculars. Several pairs of these, and we passed them around. It was fascinating. Here's what I saw. Blew me away. You look up into the ordinary night sky, even on a clear night, and you'll see, you know, some aircraft, and you'll see this and that. But you won't see a lot. You put these things on, and it literally seemed like Grand Central Station in New York City above my head. I was astonished. Aircraft. And these were not ordinary. They were very high altitude, very fast. There have been rumors of something called a TAV, Trans-Atmospheric Vehicle. I think that's what I was looking at, some of those.
Is that vehicle ours?
That would be something that we could have made.
Okay, but maybe reverse technology, maybe. Or we can't say.
Well, the TAVs, the technology...
But it's ours either.
Yeah,
okay,
but they're not officially acknowledged.
Right, okay. So.
They were very odd, pulsating objects just going across, I mean, really strange stuff.
Huh.
It was a real eye-opener for me. So, to me, that's almost like I carry that as a visual of the stuff that's actually going on when, you know, but that we ordinarily don't have access to.
But anybody can look at through one of those things, right? Get one of those.
Yeah, I'd like to have my own pair. I'd look up every night.
Yeah.
I normally don't have access to them. And, you know, governments don't make it easy. They don't make it easy for people who have night vision.
Oh, okay.
In some countries, I think it's illegal. In the U.S., it is legal, but it's just a little pricey. But I'm thinking of ponying up the money.
We should all get them before they ban them completely then.
There you go. Get a good pair.
Or something.
So yeah, I think that the UFO phenomenon is actually totally fascinating, and there's, I mean, it would remake our society and our civilization if we get this out in the open. It would be the most revolutionary thing that I can imagine.
Yeah.
And you have a radio show on the internet now.
I do, yeah.
Tell me about that.
It's called The Richard Dolan Show. It's it used to be on Saturday nights, now it's Monday nights. I don't know give it my Saturday nights.
Internet?
It's all internet, it's all web-based.
Cool.
The station is kgraradio.com.
And you interview...
I do, I mostly just talk. I'm basically a non-asshole-ish version of like Rush Limbaugh for UFO. So I do my own thing. Really, I'll just talk. I'll just talk for 2 hours. I don't really care. But I'll have guests on. I've had Jim Mars on as a guest. I've had Dane Wigington, who does geoengineering. I've had Linda Moulton Howe, and I mean a lot of interesting people. But basically, I don't really care if I have a guest or not. I'm just happy just to do my thing. Get on my soapbox and pontificate for a couple of hours.
That's great.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for sharing all that. Wow.
That was fun.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Wow.
thank you.
What a mind. Whew. Whew.
I don't know. We're doing this all at 1 in the morning. I don't even know what I'm saying half the time.
It's stream of
I'm in a
consciousness.
nice kind of mellow, kind of late night mode. Just letting it all happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna... Broad concept idea.
Let's start by levels. So level one is what we know we can prove without any argument. Level one is, this is like the boring part, but it's important. There is proof. Not proof that UFOs are ET, not proof that they're anything, but proof that the phenomenon is absolutely real, and that the U.S. government in particular has cared about this at a very, very profound level since the beginning, since the 1940s. And by proof, I'm saying declassified U.S. government documents. And to me, that constitutes proof. You take the top 10, the top 20, the top 50, the top 100 of those documents, and they don't hint, they don't suggest, they prove that the U.S. military and the CIA and all the other agencies were concerned, very concerned about UFOs. Why? Obvious. Because unknown objects that didn't look normal, that were disc-shaped, that didn't act normally, because they could loiter indefinitely and then take off or zigzag and do all these impossible things. We're invading sensitive airspace, nuclear installations that we're not supposed to have, and all of this. Los Alamos National Labs in the 1940s, Oak Ridge in the 1940s. Those are two key nuclear sites. They were constantly, repeatedly violated in their airspace by these unknown objects. The Hanford Nuclear Facility in the state of Washington, not far from here, in the early 50s, the scene of repeated UFOs. And this is stated in a document. There's one document that said objects round in form have been seen repeatedly. Jet fighters, no result. Anti-aircraft battalions.
Through genetic change, like the way that we took wolves and made them into dog pets, right? Do you think maybe the aliens are doing that genetically just to keep the war and the violence down? And because we don't need our animal side anymore because we know how to farm.
Well, if they're doing it, they're not succeeding. Our violence is as higher than it's ever been.
Yeah.
I mean, we're great at bombing people and killing them and causing misery and starvation, so I don't know. If they're really here to do that, then they're failing miserably. But I wouldn't say alien agenda, I would say alien agendas. I would say plural. I don't really believe, I'm just speculating here, but just based on the research that I've done, I have become aware of multiple types of people, beings, whatever they are, that seem to be interacting here on planet Earth. Some of these are human beings that look just like us. They don't act like us. They're very different. You get stories about greys. They're definitely out there. You get many stories now about reptoid type creatures. Are they all on the same team? I don't know. Then you get stories of people who are very positive that they have these wonderful telepathic downloads from other types of beings who are very positive and beneficent. Then you talk to people who've had abduction experiences who are so fucked up and traumatized they can't process it. Is that the same thing? I think it's a very different thing. So I think that there are multiple agendas, to be honest with you, and it makes sense to me. You know why? I look at Earth and I look at humanity right now.
The diversity just everywhere.
I think humanity is the most fascinating thing right now. Harry Truman and the Soviet Union, the Russians, the birth of the CIA, and that's all interesting stuff. No flying saucers in that whole bit, Then, somehow, who knows why, because I still don't know why to this day, I stumbled into the subject of UFOs. I saw a book in a bookstore, a great book, which is on Brian's shelf over there. Timothy Good's Above Top Secret. If you find it, you can bring it over and I'll show it. I'm looking right at it. It's right on the bottom shelf, second to the left.
Ooh,
am I getting it wrong there?
Do you want us to put a bit of grapefruit juice in that? Or do you
think I should?
Well, I don't know if you need energy or anything.
I'm cool right now.
Okay,
Oh, here it is.
I might put some grapefruit juice.
See, I thought I was looking right at it. So we will show the good people.
So this is the book that changed your life.
This actually did. So I was in a bookstore in the early 90s, like a million years ago.
Okay.
And this book was on a display stand. And I basically said, hello, what's this? And it says, Above Top Secret, the Worldwide UFO Cover-Up. And that was what got my attention. And I was like, for realsies? And I flipped through the book just like this. and I saw names that I'd recognized in my study, departments that I had studied in my academic work. And the difference, though, was that Timothy Good was putting them in a context that was totally different, of course, and putting them together in a UFO context. And, you know, even a casual glance at this could tell that looked like he was doing a pretty good job.
They're
On the cutting edge, they're out there.
I don't know. Do you think that they're really running the American government?
I don't know if the
More
CIA
than-
per se is. I think the CIA has always worked for wealthy money, Rockefeller money. In fact, the foundation of the CIA, you get people like Alan Dulles, you know, at the origins of it. He was a Rockefeller lawyer for years. They work for the rich, always have. The U.S. intelligence community works for the uber wealthy, always have.
Federal
Always will.
Reserve people.
Why did
Yeah, absolutely.
Rockefellers.
So, so to say they run the country, they're like the covert managers, and they work for their bosses, who are the people with the bucks.
And what do you think with the alien? What do you think the alien agenda is? Like, what do you think they're doing? Do you think they're breeding us, or do you think they're genetically altering the violence out of the human race through genetic change? Like the way that you know, we took wolves and made them into dog pets, right? Do you think maybe the aliens are doing that genetically just to keep the war and the violence down? And because we don't need our animal side anymore because we know how to farm.
Well,
and
if
we
they're
know
doing
how
it, they're
to-
not succeeding. Our violence is as higher than it's ever been.
Yeah.
I mean, we're great at bombing people and killing them and causing misery and starvation, so I don't
Yeah.
know. If they're really here to do that, then they're failing miserably. But I wouldn't say alien agenda, I would say alien agendas. I would say plural. I don't really believe. I'm just...
1947, and then the
Exactly.
and then
We've come a
sort of-
long way. It's been
yeah.
a long, long journey of learning. So that's the 2 volumes of UFOs and National Security State, and there will be a third. I expect it done. I'm going to be deep back into it this summer of 2014. Any time now.
In what way?
Like finishing it, getting
Okay.
volume 3 done. It's going to be another 600-page book.
Wow, great.
These things, they take a lot out of me. I would have had volume 3 done years ago, but I wrote 2 books in the interim.
Which other books?
I wrote a book about the future. I co-authored that one called AD, After Disclosure, and it's basically a speculative book, but with my feet on the ground, looking at a world of the end of UFO secrecy. So I asked, my co-author asked, how might UFO secrecy end? Like, would it ever really end? Some people think, no, it's impossible, it'll never end. But I think it's a paradox. It's impossible, but it's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And then what happens after the end of that secrecy? How will it rock our world? And that's really what that book explores.
Yeah.
That was a great adventure writing that book. I had a good co-author. And basically, by the end of it, we realized this is an absolutely, utterly, completely revolutionary phenomenon, and that is exactly why the secrecy is so intense. Because this will change everything. Everything. So then I was about to get back into volume 3 after I finished AD, and then I ended up doing a different book called UFOs for the 21st Century Mind. And that's a total fresh summation of the whole subject, of everything, of all of its amazing, baffling, insane, crazy profundity. Because it's every trains, automobiles, airplanes, missiles, atomic nuclear weapons, computers, really great computers, iPads, advanced nanotech, and soon...
Hadron Collider, or...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Genetic manipulation. I mean, we've really cracked the human genome. We're going to have very strong AI in a few years. It's going to happen. Advanced 3D printing. I mean, good God, all in that amount of time.
Yeah.
So if there's anyone that has the ability to watch us and maybe, you know, to kind of get in here, they're going to be looking at us now. And they may be thinking, not that we're going to be able to take them in a street fight in a few years, but we might be a real annoyance. We're going to have quantum computing, if we don't already have it covertly. In other words, our capabilities are going exponentially times exponentially greater. This is not like what it was in the time of, you know, Abraham Lincoln. This is a totally different situation. So they've got to be looking at us thinking, some of them might logically think, humanity might be annoying, let's get control of it, if they haven't already. So we'll control the World Bank, we'll control the U.S. presidency, we'll control, you know, the UN, whatever institutions. I'm not saying this is the case, but if I were one of them looking at humanity, hell, I would.
Gen 21,
Yeah,
things like this.
right. Well, maybe yes. Controlling population, keeping them kind of penned in, keeping them controlled.
Yeah.
That might be part of it. But yes, so I mean, I think there's different, probably different agendas. Just like this will change everything. So then I was about to get back into volume 3 after I finished AD, and then I ended up doing a different book called UFOs for the 21st Century Mind. And that's a total fresh summation of the whole subject, of everything, of all of its amazing, baffling, insane, crazy profundity. Because it's everything. You know, it makes you crazy, but it makes you wise. And it does, so it talks about the history from ancient aliens to today. I covered the whole history of it. But there's a lot of philosophy in this book. There's a lot of politics, deep politics, not bullshit kindergarten politics, but sophisticated politics that deals with how does the cover-up actually work, at least to the best of my ability to understand this. But not just the politics. I look at social implications, the whole aspect of contact. What's happening when people are having these experiences? How is it affecting them? What the hell are we dealing with? Who are these other entities? What could they be? I really try to explore this in a sophisticated way. And then there's, beyond that, it's the science, the crazy science that just doesn't seem to make sense, but actually it does. Whether we're talking about something as simple as propulsion technology, to space-time manipulation, to string theory, to dimensions, to consciousness, to entanglement, all of those things matter in the UFO phenomenon. A lot of the book deals with social implications of this. In other words, what is it like to study UFOs today as opposed to 1950? How's it different? What are the issues we deal with in an age of YouTube videos being posted and Facebook copy and paste rumor, and the whole kind of movement of book about the future? I co-authored that one called AD After Disclosure, and it's basically a speculative book, but with my feet on the ground, looking at a world of the end of UFO secrecy. So I asked, my co-author asked, how might UFO secrecy end? Like, would it ever really end? Some people think, no, it's impossible, it'll never end. But I think it's a paradox. It's impossible, but it's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And then what happens after the end of that secrecy? How will it rock our world? And that's really what that book explores.
Yeah.
That was a great adventure writing that book. I had a good co-author. And basically, by the end of it, we realized this is an absolutely, utterly, completely revolutionary phenomenon, and that is exactly why the secrecy is so intense. Because this will change everything, everything. So then I was about to get back into Volume 3 after I finished AD, and then I ended up doing a different book called UFOs for the 21st Century Mind. And that's a total fresh summation of the whole subject, of everything, of all of its amazing, baffling, insane, crazy profundity. Because it's everything. You know, it makes you crazy, but it makes you wise. And it does, so it talks about the history from ancient aliens to today. I covered the whole history of it. But there's a lot of philosophy in this book. There's a lot of politics, deep politics, not bullshit kindergarten politics, but sophisticated politics that deals with how does the cover-up actually work, at least to the best of my ability to understand this. But not just the politics. I look at social implications, the whole aspect of contact. What's happening? First, I'm trying to remember exactly.
Yeah.
They're going to play the Soviet Union, which they're doing now. Then they're going to play terrorists.
Right, yeah, and then terrorists.
And then they're going to play the ET card,
Right,
the evil
yeah.
ET card. And that's all part of their plan to sort of create, basically,
Control,
fascist state, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, maybe that's the case. Now, a couple of things about Von Braun. He was very plugged in, and he did know a lot of things.
And I mean, he said that
yeah.
they said they had help from people from not this planet or whatever that quote was. Sorry to interrupt.
Hermann Oberth?
Yeah, he said.
Von Braun's mentor.
That's right, yeah, that guy.
People from other planets.
And how he said
Right.
that they got help, you know, like the rocket ships and all that, with people from other planets. I don't know.
Yeah, Oberth was it's interesting you mentioned him. He's a
concept.
very interesting guy, and none of his biographers talk about his fascination with the flying saucer phenomenon and these statements like his that he used to make.
Wow.
Oberth was a very interesting guy.
Wow.
But anyway, and
So sorry, back to
back to Von Braun. I look at it in a couple of ways. I think it's very likely he did say it. The question is...
Well, you said he was plugged in. I'm sorry.
I think he was very plugged in, but how plugged in was he?
Right.
Was he completely plugged in? What you find is that this is a subject in which people have partial access. It's very rare you're going to find someone who's got total access to everything. And honestly, I sincerely doubt that even Von Braun had total access, total knowledge. I would be skeptical. Maybe he did. He was running the kind of NASA rocket program. He was kind of putting hydrogen bombs. 36. From 1945 to the end of the century, this world experienced over 2,000 nuclear detonations. Over 2,000. It's unbelievable. With all the environmental damage we're seeing now, we're talking about atmospheric damage. No one talks about the nukes and what that did to our environment. But anyway, the point is, during Operation Dominic, which was a very specific series of high-altitude hydrogen bomb explosions in the Pacific, this guy was part of some of that. And one thing he said to me is that every single time they were about to launch a nuke, there were bogeys in the sky. as UFOs that would always disappear just before detonation. I spoke to another U.S. Navy guy who did a service in the Pacific in the 60s.
So it affects them.
He wasn't,
Probably.
yes, he wasn't part of Dominic, but he also said they had bogeys all the time. Yes, what happens is these nukes give off powerful electromagnetic pulses. They're disruptive to the upper atmosphere, and they must be disruptive to anything that's out there.
Yeah.
So we got their attention.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, they're definitely concerned with our nukes. But in terms of the cover-up, I mean, think of it this way. Just pretend that crash retrievals did occur, that somehow the U.S. military recovered technology that was exotic, that did not originate from the civilization. Just pretend it happened, because I think it did.
And reverse engineered it, yeah.
Yeah, so if that's the case, if you're the person in charge of national security, you're not going to tell me this. This is what I do periodically. I'll get like obsessively interested in a thing, in a topic, and I'll just throw myself into it. So I thought, I'm going to do it with UFOs. What the hell? Why not? But the problem with the UFO subject is it's like...
The rabbit hole.
It is, it's a rabbit hole. It's like Odysseus' sirens that just calls you, and then you're like...
Curiosity kills kitties.
You're in, right. So here's what happened.
Yeah.
I got the answer to my first question pretty early on. Hell yes, they were interested. The declassified documents, some of which are here, and some of which are in other books, that makes it very clear. U.S. government, oh yeah, they were interested. So then that leads to other questions. Why were they interested? Well, that's a pretty interesting answer. As I said earlier to you, airspace violations, unknown objects, that seemed to be doing amazing things, performance that wasn't supposed to be possible. So that leads to other questions. Were they actually seeing other things? Was this genuine? And the deeper you go, the more it looked like, actually, yeah, it did look like it. Did they ever stop being interested? Turns out, no, hell no, they never stopped being interested, despite their lies. So it didn't take long before I realized, this is pretty darn interesting, and I want to get to the bottom of this. That was 20 years ago.
Get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
What do you think of how Werner von Braun's assistant said that he said, watch out for them pulling the aliens are invading card?
That's right.
And
Carol Brosnan, who was an assistant for Werner von Braun during the last few years of his life in the 1970s.
And how he kept saying that.
I've got a great life, and I have a lot of cool things that I'm investigating, fascinating mysteries, amazing people that I meet along the way, like you and Brian, and a lot of the other people here in Vancouver that I just loved meeting. So I get to do that. I get to learn. But the journey. So here's the journey, in a nutshell. 20 years ago, I started. 20 years ago, I was trying to wrap up a doctoral dissertation in Cold War studies. Harry Truman and the Soviet Union, the Russians, the birth of the CIA. And that's all interesting stuff. No flying saucers in that whole bit. Then, somehow, who knows why, because I still don't know why to this day, I stumbled into the subject of UFOs. I saw a book in a bookstore. A great book, which is on Brian's shelf over there. Timothy Good's Above Top Secret. If you find it, you can bring it over now. I'll show you. I'm looking right at it. It's right on the bottom shelf, second to the left. Am I getting it wrong there?
Do you want us to put a bit of grapefruit juice in that? Or do you
think I should?
Well, I don't know if you need energy or anything.
I'm cool right now.
Okay,
Oh, here it is.
I might put some grapefruit juice.
I thought I was looking right at it. So we will show the good people.
So this is the book that changed your life.
This actually did. So I was in a bookstore in the early 90s, like a million years ago.
Okay.
And this book was on a display stand. And I basically said, hello, what's this? And it says, Above Top Secret, the Worldwide UFO Cover-Up. And that was what got my attention. And I was like, for realsies? And I flipped through the book just like this. And he made a very good case that they are. But I was talking with him once about the UK crop circles. And his opinion, I was kind of shocked actually. But his opinion is that like nearly all of them are fake. And I said, are you really all? I mean, a lot of them, yes. But all? That's his opinion. But in his judgment, at least a third, or maybe more, of all American crop circles are genuine. And he goes on the basis of anomalies with the stalks themselves and so on. But I wasn't expert enough to argue with him about the UK circles, but I just thought that seems like how I know.
Yeah, Canada has a lot in the interior where all the wheat fields are.
Right.
You get a lot of them in
Are there any people
Saskatchewan.
doing detailed studies of the Canadian formations?
There's people who are into it, but there's not a big group of somebody studying them. There's just independent people who go out there, take pictures, and and they go up on the web. But I'm not aware of it. I don't think there is anybody.
I tell you, I mean, I love this country so much now. I want to come back up and I'll If I could sweep floors for a living up here, maybe I'll do that, and I can do some circle research on the side.
Well, yeah, you should check out John Hiller. It's pretty fun. With the dinosaurs, the one that Glaciers Nest.
Uh-huh. Oh, right, I heard about that.
Oh, it's
Well, I
right there.
guess I got some great pictures.
Oh, no, thanks. I've got one right there. I was going to ask you about, okay, so what do you think overall with the government?
Very positive that they have these wonderful telepathic downloads from other types of beings who are very positive and beneficent. Then you talk to people who've had abduction experiences who are so fucked up and traumatized they can't process it. Is that the same thing? I think it's a very different thing. So I think that there are multiple agendas, to be honest with you, and it makes sense to me. You know why? I look at Earth and I look at humanity right now.
The diversity just everywhere.
I think humanity is the most fascinating thing right now. We're transforming ourselves as a civilization right now. It's easy for us to look down on ourselves and think, oh, people, we're nothing special. But no, we're really special. You know, it's not just that we can produce Mozart or Leonardo da Vinci. We have a society that really has got a lot of interesting things going on. There's a lot of stupid things going on in reality TV and people just having enforced idiocy, all right? But there's a lot of amazing things happening. And on top of that, our technological innovation is going. In 150 years, think about where we were. 150 years ago, the society of mud and horses and wooden carts, and that was us. Now, anywhere you go in the world. And from that time to now, we've gone through trains, automobiles, airplanes, missiles, atomic nuclear weapons, computers, really great computers, iPads, advanced nanotech, and soon...
Hadron Collider. Or,
yeah, exactly. Genetic manipulation. I mean, we've really cracked the human genome. We're going to have very strong AI in a few years. It's something that's happening to people that they don't know how to process. It's very difficult, and it's traumatic. Sometimes it can be transformative in a positive way. That's also significant. But all of it is important. This is something that affects many people in a deeply personal way. This is just, it's not like fun and games. It's a very important phenomenon that's involving some kind of civilization, some kind of intelligence that's operating in a very sophisticated way. And by the way, there are human black budget operators who are aware of this, and they too are part of this equation. They're monitoring things. This is what it looks like to me. There's a very complex labyrinthian sort of interrelationship of, who. I would love to have a true scorecard to see who all the players are, but I think there's multiple groups that are not us, others, as I sometimes call them. I think there are multiple human groups that are involved in figuring this out. Maybe they don't play nice with each other either. They may be competing, and and all of this is beyond. It's on the other side of our fence. We don't ordinarily have access to it, but it's there. It's going on. So, last thing I'll just leave you with is a few years ago I did a night watch with a group of people who had very good quality night vision binoculars. Several pairs of these, and we passed them around. It was fascinating. Here's what I saw. Blew me away. You look up into the ordinary night sky, even on a clear night, and you'll see, some aircraft, and you'll see this and that. But you won't see a lot. You put these things on, and it literally seemed like Grand Central Station in New York City above my heads. And they don't hint, they don't suggest, they prove that the U.S. military and the CIA and all the other agencies were very concerned about UFOs. Why? Obvious. Because unknown objects that didn't look normal, that were disc-shaped, that didn't act normally, because they could loiter indefinitely and then take off or zigzag and do all these impossible things. We're invading sensitive airspace, nuclear installations that we're not supposed to have, and all of this. Los Alamos National Labs in the 1940s, Oak Ridge in the 1940s. Those are two key nuclear sites. They were constantly, repeatedly violated in their airspace by these unknown objects. The Hanford Nuclear Facility in the state of Washington, not far from here, in the early 50s, the scene of repeated UFOs. And this is stated in a document. There's one document that said, objects round in form have been seen repeatedly. Jet fighters, no result. Anti-aircraft battalions alerted. I mean, think about what people would have said had they known this at the time, in 1950, if these documents had been available.
And, well, it's obvious that like Jim Marrs says, that the aliens, when we discovered nuclear, when we started making nuclear bombs, like Jim Marrs quotes, he's got my favorite quote there on the children who found the matches, right? So they're going to these nuclear missile sites and everything. So I have a question. Do you think, because I was saying that to somebody once, I was saying, they're going to all these nuclear, and they shut them down sometimes, and also, and my friend said, oh, well then we don't have to worry about a nuclear war going on, because the aliens are going to take care of it for us. They won't let us.
He says that facetiously, but the fact is this.
So what do you think of that concept? You think they're going to keep us from blowing each other up, maybe?
Well, I don't know. Nobody knows, but think about this. Yeah. We've had nukes, we've had a nuclear standoff for over 50, 60 years, and we haven't had a nuclear war. So maybe, maybe that is the case, actually. You never know. But the fact is, if we're going to talk about cover-up, I just gave you only level 1. That's the most superficial thing. Mm-hmm. What we know is that there's interest, there's concern. But relating to the nukes, that's a step further. These things, wherever they are, are concerned about the nukes. In my opinion, they actually are. It's not that they simply hang out over nuclear installations. They have disabled nuclear weaponry multiple times.
Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm.
Right? And in my newest book, which this will be my plug for my newest book, UFOs for the 21st Century Mind, but in that book, I included an interview that I did with a man who was in the U.S. Navy in the Pacific Ocean in the early 1960s. And he was part of what was called Operation Dominic. Mm-hmm. Operation Dominic was this really bright idea, by the U.S. government to explode 36 nukes in the higher upper stratosphere off the coast of Hawaii from April to October 1962. 36 hydrogen bombs. 36. From 1945 to the end of the century, this world experienced over 2,000 nuclear detonations. Over 2,000. It's unbelievable. With all the environmental damage we're seeing now, we're talking about atmospheric damage. No one talks about the nukes and what that did to our environment. But anyway, the point is, during Operation Dominic, which was a very specific series of high-altitude hydrogen bomb explosions in the Pacific, this guy was part of some of that. And one thing he said to me is that every single time they were about to launch a nuke, there were bogeys in the sky, that is UFOs, that would always disappear just before detonation. I spoke to another U.S. Navy guy who did a service in the Pacific in the 60s.
So it affects them.
He wasn't, yes, he wasn't part of Dominic, but he also said they had bogeys all the time. Yes, what happens is these nukes give off powerful electromagnetic pulses. They're disruptive to the upper atmosphere, and they must be disruptive to anything that's out there.
Yeah.
So we got their attention.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, they're definitely concerned with our nukes. But in terms of the cover-up, I mean, think of it this way. Just pretend that crash retrievals did occur, that somehow the U.S. military recovered technology that was exotic, that did not originate from the civilization. Just pretend it happened, because I think it did.
And reverse engineered it, yeah.
Yeah, so if that's the case, if you're the person in charge of national security, you're not going to tell the world. You can't tell the world.
They want to hoard the patents.
Well, they want to hoard absolutely. Yeah. But also think of the public relations nightmare if you were to tell the world you have this stuff.
Yeah, I suppose.
You're going to be the president of the U.S. and you're going to have to answer a lot of questions. You don't know how to answer them. Do we have anything to worry about these aliens? Are they friend or foe? You probably wouldn't know. And it's a no-win situation. And then then there's sharing the technology. Then there's the revolutionary nature of this technology. I mean, think about it. A little 10-year-old kid looking at a flying saucer zipping through the sky knows that it's not running on gasoline. So implicit in the whole UFO phenomenon is what? A post-petroleum future. And what does that mean? We're in a whole total petroleum world here. Everything is oil. The entire global financial system is interconnected with oil. It's all oil power. And back then especially, oil was generating economic growth of 5% globally a year. I mean, it's great, man. Why rock the boat? They're making bucket loads of money. And they don't know how to monetize free energy. Whatever the energy source of these objects, if it's electrogravitic type system based on some other kind of exotic form of energy that we haven't mastered, but we would master if we had this secret out in the open. But what if you can't easily monetize it?
Right.
And what if they don't know how? So there's all of these unknown variables. And so then you have free energy for the people? That's great for us, probably. Not good for the control system.
Right.
I mean, literally, think about it. You can build your own little flying saucer and zip off to Burma, zip off to Germany. It might be a little hard to control national borders, among other things. Borders would become very porous, which I think would be kind of interesting. Maybe not such a bad thing.
What do you think of, you probably know about this incident, where the CIA went in and they were researching where Noah's Ark Do you know about that?
Oh, no, I wish my friend Nick Redford knows a lot about this. He wrote quite a bit about it.
Yeah, and I wondered if you had any ideas, or if you know about that, any thoughts on that? Because
really.
It was, I guess the original text, it was actually, they didn't store the animals, sorry to interrupt, but they weren't storing the two of each animal. If you read the actual interpretation of the language, linguistically, what it was saying was the seeds of the animal.
Yeah, I mean,
so
if there's any truth to this,
it's probably a ship. That's right. So why is the CIA studying that? Why are they bringing people up there to find that out? You know, and I wonder what you thought of that.
Well, I guess I would just say that the CIA and probably other intelligence agencies too take a lot of those stories a lot more seriously than we're led to believe. And the idea of the seed, I think, is key, because if there's any truth to the Noah's Ark story, which is itself based on earlier Sumerian stories anyway, then it would have to be, you're talking about advanced people who have the ability to manipulate genetics and store genetic material. Which, I mean, that's, sounds crazy to someone who hasn't really studied any of this alternative view, but they might be surprised to find that there's actually quite a few researchers who've been going that way. It's really not my specialty, and it's hard for me to form an opinion, but
yeah, that's true, sorry.
I'm very... I really respect Nick's research on that, and seems like they were interested.
Yeah.
Sure, I mean, they're interested in all kinds of things. CIA's been interested in all kinds of off-the-chart things. I mean, they focus on remote viewing, psychic spotting.
Yeah, right.
He does American crop circles, which there's a lot of them in Ohio, Indiana, central part of the U.S. Quite a few. Quite a few. And there's a relationship of those to, at least he argues persuasively, that there's a relationship to sacred sites, Native American sites, which basically have been obliterated by real estate development and whatnot, but we know that those sites are there. And he made a very good case that they are. But I was talking with him once about the UK crop circles, and his opinion, I was kind of shocked actually, but his opinion is that nearly all of them are fake. And I said, are you really all? I mean, a lot of them, yes, but all? That's his opinion. But in his judgment, at least a third, or maybe more, of all American crop circles are genuine. And he goes on the basis of anomalies with the stalks themselves and so on. But I wasn't expert enough to argue with him about the UK circles, but I just thought that seems like a high number.
Yeah, Canada has a lot in the interior where all wheat fields are.
Right.
You get a lot of them in
Are there
Saskatchewan.
any people doing detailed studies of the Canadian formations?
There's people who are into it, but there's not a big group of somebody studying them. There's just independent people who go out there, take pictures, and and they go up on the web. But I'm not aware of it. I don't think there is anybody.
I tell you, I mean, I love this country so much now. I want to come back up, and if I could sweep floors for living up here, maybe I'll do that, and I can do some circle research on the side.
Well, you should check out John Hiller. It's pretty fun. With the dinosaurs, the one that glaciers missed.
Oh, right. I heard about that.
Oh, it's
Well, I
right
get to got some great pictures.
Oh, no, thanks. I've got one right there. I was going to ask you about, okay, so what do you think overall with the government conspiracy for the cover-up of the spaceships and aliens?
Holy
your
shit,
general...
that's just been my whole life for the last 20 years.
Yeah, I know, that's why I'm asking you that
Where
question.
did I start?
I don't know,
Well,
that's just a broad concept idea.
Let's start by levels. So level one is what we know we can prove without any argument. Level one is, this is like the boring part, but it's important. There is proof. Not proof that UFOs are ET, not proof that they're anything, but proof that the phenomenon is absolutely real, and that the U.S. government in particular has cared about this at a very, very profound level since the beginning, since the 1940s. And by proof, I'm saying declassified U.S. government documents. And to me, that constitutes proof. You take the top 10, the top 20, the top 50, the top 100 of those documents.
What? Whoa. What the fuck?
Well, right. I can't remember the name of the man, but I think he was a European, possibly a German. But he did a study of the crop circles during the 80s and 1990s. And what he found was each year, there were more interesting, unique patterns, in geometric combinations and relationships that had not existed the previous year. Each there were just new combinations and new developments. So they were becoming more complex
intricate,
every
yeah.
year. Yeah,
Interesting.
I think the crop circles are fascinating. I mean, just absolutely. I was chatting earlier today in the workshop at the library where we were, and someone asked me about crop circles, and I absolutely do not believe that these are all caused by the human circle makers. And I do think some of those circle makers are not on the level anyway. There's been a lot of suspicion that they've been paid off even by British intelligence.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
But all you have to do is you look at the scientific studies that look at the nodes, like the knuckles of the wheat, that are blasted out. The only logical thing we can see is by localized high heat, which heats the vapor and goes through the node. And the fact is that these stalks, they're not pressed down by boards, they flop over like this. So how does that? And they're unbelievably complex. And some of them, they're enormous, and they're 30 minutes go by in broad daylight, and boom, there they are. Now we see them being created.
Somebody had some footage a couple years ago of two orbs doing it. I saw that on YouTube. I don't know if it was a fake one.
I saw it on YouTube. I think it's fake.
Well, there was a claim that it was fake. There was a claim that it was fake for years and years, but I don't know this definitively. But I recall hearing that there was a fresh analysis done of that, and because it's very easy for some video guy, no one checks his work to say, oh, it's fake. But that was a number of years ago, and I know that people took a fresh look at it. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think that they agreed with that original conclusion.
Wow, that's so cool to see.
So I don't know though. But no, I think the circles are fascinating.
It happened fast,
Very
right?
fascinating.
20 minutes.
Yeah, and I don't believe those people who say that they're all. I had a conversation with an American crop circle expert, and I really like this guy. His name is Jeff Wilson. Smart young guy, and I just love what he does.